The engagement ring was still warm from her hand when Maren Whitlock placed it inside a small wooden box, closed the lid, and quietly ended the future everyone thought she wanted. She had no idea that only minutes later, the sound of a helicopter above her garden would reveal a truth powerful enough to change the lives of everyone involved. The person stepping out of that helicopter was the one man who could have stopped her heartbreak, but he had arrived only after she had already chosen herself. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the most painful goodbyes become the beginning of the most meaningful journeys. Maren Whitlock had spent most of her life believing that love was built through patience, loyalty, and understanding. She was 32 years old and lived in a small countryside home surrounded by flowers, old trees, and memories left behind by her grandparents. Her garden was the place where she felt most peaceful. Every morning, she watered the roses, trimmed the plants, and remembered the lessons her grandmother had taught her about growing things slowly. A garden, she always believed, could not be forced to bloom. It needed care, honesty, and time. For nearly 3 years, Maren had been engaged to Callum Reeves, a successful businessman who came from a respected family. In the beginning, Callum seemed like everything she had hoped for. He was ambitious, charming, and determined to build a future. He admired Maren's kindness and often told others that she was the person who kept him grounded. But over time, something changed. Callum became consumed by his company, his reputation, and the expectations placed on him. The man who once noticed when Maren was tired began forgetting important moments. The person who once walked through her garden holding her hand started seeing it as a distraction from the life he wanted. Maren tried to understand. She told herself that success required sacrifice. She convinced herself that difficult seasons passed. She defended him when friends noticed his distance. She believed that love meant staying when things became complicated. But slowly, she began to feel invisible. The hardest moment came on the morning she ended the engagement. The sun was bright, the sky was clear, and birds moved through the trees surrounding her home. It was a beautiful day, yet Maren felt a sadness she could no longer ignore. She had prepared a small box for the engagement ring and placed it carefully on the wooden table near her garden. There was no anger inside her. No desire for revenge. No dramatic decision made from bitterness. Only exhaustion. She realized she had been fighting to save a relationship where she was the only person still holding on. She had spent months waiting for Callum to notice her pain, but she finally understood that she could not beg someone to value what they already had. With tears in her eyes, Maren removed the ring and placed it in the box. She wrote a simple note explaining that she cared for him, but she could no longer continue losing herself while trying to protect a love that had stopped growing. She had barely finished when she heard a strange sound coming from above. At first, she thought it was a distant aircraft. Then the sound became louder. The leaves on the trees moved violently, and the flowers in her garden shook beneath the force of the wind. A helicopter descended toward the open field beside her property. Maren stood frozen as it landed near the garden path. She could not understand why such an expensive helicopter would come to her quiet home. Then the door opened, and a man stepped out wearing a simple dark suit. It was Everett Vale. The world knew Everett as one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs in the country. His technology empire had transformed industries, and magazines often described him as a man who could buy anything he wanted. But behind the public image was a person few people truly knew. Everett had not come because of business. He had come because of Maren. Months earlier, she had unknowingly changed his life. The previous year, Everett had visited a small community project near Maren's hometown. He had expected to meet business leaders and investors, but instead he noticed Maren spending her time helping elderly residents restore their homes and gardens. She was not trying to impress anyone. She was not looking for attention. She was simply helping because she believed people deserved kindness. Everett had watched from a distance as Maren treated strangers with the same care she gave to family. At a time when his own life felt empty despite his success, her compassion reminded him that wealth meant nothing without purpose. They had become friends after that day, sharing conversations about life, mistakes, and dreams. Everett respected Maren deeply, but he also knew she was engaged. He never crossed a line or interfered with her relationship. Instead, he quietly hoped she would find happiness, even if that happiness was not with him. But recently, Everett learned that Maren had been struggling. He discovered that she had been carrying pain alone while pretending everything was fine. He knew she was preparing to make a decision, but he never expected the helicopter to land in her garden on the same day she finally chose to walk away. Maren looked at Everett with confusion. She could not understand why a billionaire would appear at the exact moment her life had fallen apart. Everett did not come with promises of wealth or grand gestures. He came carrying something much more valuable: honesty. He admitted that he had admired her strength for a long time. He explained that he was not there to replace anyone or take advantage of her pain. He simply wanted her to know that someone saw her, appreciated her, and believed her heart mattered. For the first time in months, Maren felt understood. But the arrival of Everett brought another unexpected challenge. News of the helicopter spread quickly through the small town. People began making assumptions. Some believed Maren had ended her engagement because she wanted a richer life. Others judged her without knowing the truth. The rumors hurt her deeply because they attacked the very thing she valued most: her character. Maren did not want to be known as someone who left one person for another. She wanted her choices to be understood for what they truly were. She had not walked away because of money. She had walked away because she had forgotten what it felt like to respect herself. Everett noticed her struggle and made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of hiding her or trying to control the story, he encouraged her to speak honestly. He reminded her that truth did not need to fight for attention. It only needed time. Meanwhile, Callum finally realized what he had lost. When he returned to Maren's home and saw the empty space where the engagement ring had once been, he understood that the problem had never been a single argument or one mistake. It had been 1,000 small moments when he chose ambition over love. He had believed Maren would always wait. He had mistaken her patience for permission to neglect her. Seeing her stand stronger without him forced Callum to confront the person he had become. For years, he had chased success because he feared failure. He had wanted the perfect image of life while ignoring the person who made life meaningful. Callum apologized, but this time Maren did not need apologies to survive. She listened, forgave him for the pain he caused, and accepted that forgiveness did not always mean returning to the past. Sometimes forgiveness meant allowing everyone to move forward. Months passed, and Maren's life began changing in ways she never expected. She expanded her garden into a community space where people could learn, heal, and reconnect. Children planted flowers there. Elderly neighbors shared stories there. People who felt forgotten found a place where they belonged. Everett supported the project, but he never tried to own it. That was what made Maren respect him even more. He did not see her dreams as something to control. He saw them as something to protect. Their relationship grew slowly, like the garden Maren loved so much. It was not built on loneliness or rescue. It was built on friendship, trust, and two people choosing each other freely. Years later, when people asked Maren about the day a billionaire's helicopter landed in her garden, they expected a story about money, fame, and a surprising romance. But Maren always told them the real story was different. It was the story of a woman who finally understood that love should not require her to disappear. It was the story of a man who learned that success was meaningless without compassion. It was the story of two people who discovered that the greatest second chances begin when we stop accepting less than we deserve. Before the story ends, we would love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment sharing what lesson touched your heart the most. Was it the importance of self-respect, forgiveness, kindness, or believing that new beginnings can appear when we least expect them? If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Maren eventually understood that the helicopter was never the most important thing that arrived in her garden that day. The greatest arrival was her own courage. She had finally returned to herself, and in doing so, she created a life filled with the very things she had always given to others: love, peace, and hope.